Thank you, Erin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Erin. Could I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Giller?
Here.
Mr. Pascal? Mark, are you there?
Yes, here.
Thank you. Mrs. Annalee?
Here.
Mr. Jackson?
Here.
Mrs. Dion?
Here.
Mrs. Carey?
We know she's here, but unfortunately, technical difficulties.
And Mr. Nolan?
Here. As a reminder, if anyone has any comments or questions for the board or the district during the meeting, please send them to boecomment@cohoes.org, and we'll go over the comments during the appropriate portions of the meeting. It's just a reminder, if we could have folks mute when they're not talking, that'll help with a lot of the echo. And now I'll turn it over to Dr. Spring.
Matt. I'd like to welcome all of our Board of Education members, as well as all of our community members. I thank everyone for joining us this evening and for tuning in. So we greatly appreciate that. So this is a big week. Actually, today is School Nurses Day, National School Nurses Day. So I'd like to give a big shout out to our school nurses. And our nurses really are the first responders in all of our buildings, and we are so grateful, so thank you. It's also Teacher Appreciation Week, and a big shout out to all of our teachers. We are so grateful for everything you do on behalf of our students and our families, and we're just so grateful, and it's been difficult during the closure, and we definitely recognize that. So this week I've been treated to a lot of really great videos. I loved Mr. Bird's video from Abram Lansing, and I loved Mrs. DeChiro's video from Van Skyke, and I loved the car of parades visiting Mrs. Muscatello's house. So that was really exciting, and again, we're grateful for everything you do for our students. Thank you. So we have some good news this week, and listen, we love good news, and it's especially important right now during the school closure. And so this one's pretty great. The high school announced their 3 top students this week, and it really is an affirmation of everything that we do in all of our schools, K-12. And especially that we do prepare our students for success in tomorrow's world. So our top student, our valedictorian, is Hannah Ragul. Our salutatorian is Zachary Alonzo, and our honorable mention is Shannon Sebiel. So congratulations to all of these students, and we are excited for their futures. They're giving us hope for all of our futures. And we will have communications, that's Erin Cagwin. We'll be sending out a story soon, and so we can learn more about them and what was so special about them in their time with us, and what their plans are for the future. So we're excited to read that. Other great news, the district received a Gen Youth Grant for $3,000. This is being awarded to our food service department for COVID-19 distribution, and it is for actually insulated carriers, transportation carriers, so that we can keep food hot or cold, and so that will be great for us as well. So in other news that's not so great, Chicago the musical, unfortunately we have had to cancel that for this spring, and I know it's a huge disappointment for our student performers, for our advisors, for our families. So the advisors and the performers are committed to actually having the same musical for next year and committing to showing that in April 2021. But the only difference will be 4 seniors who are graduating this year. So the advisors and Aaron Cagwin got together. They invited these 4 students to come at different times to the stage at Cohoes High School, and they performed. And so that is something that everyone is going to be able to see in the next week. So that will be great. And we're also sharing it with proctors. Remember, there are those musical awards, and we wanted to make sure that they saw, you know, how great our seniors are and how talented. So we will miss our 4 seniors, but I'm excited we're at least having this celebration through this video. Let's see, so we are ready to start our performance, not our performance, this is our presentation, performance of a different nature. So I'm going to ask Erin to please display tonight's presentation. Okay, all right, so there we are in our pre-COVID world, and that looks pretty great. And at some point we are going to get back to that. It's going to look differently. We know that, and we'll be talking about that tonight as well. So just as President Nolan mentioned, please, if you have questions, please send them to boardofedcomment@cohoes.org, and we will answer those at the end of this presentation. So the governor has been very busy, and there are many new executive orders that we are going to be talking about this evening. So the first one, everybody knows, New York State schools are now closed for the remainder of the school year. So now the next question I'm being asked is, when's the last day of school? So great question. This is something that I am working on with our bargaining units, and we will in the next week announce the end of the year calendar. So that will be coming. I'm also looking to see if there is a possibility of a superintendent conference day on the last day of school, because we need time to plan for our reopening, and I thought that would be a good opportunity. So I will be updating everybody in the coming week on what our school days look like until the end. So the governor also is making a decision on whether and how summer school can be conducted. He will make that announcement at the end of May. So we're busy with our special education summer program, our ESY program, as well as the possibility of a remote summer program for us. So that's what we're looking at, and we should have updates soon. So the New York State Education Department also had some updates. So we submitted our continuity of learning plan, our updated plan, and once it is approved by the State Education Department, we will post it on our website. And August Regents exams are canceled, but that's really not a worry for us because, again, students don't need those exams in order to meet graduation requirements. So that's good news. Next slide, please. So the school budget vote. So we heard from the governor again this week, or actually Friday, right before we started our weekend, that the vote and the board member elections will be held June 9th. So the vote will be held by absentee ballot, and I'll talk more about that in this presentation. So we are required to send out 2 public notices to newspapers. And thank you to our district clerk, Joanna Maloney. She has already sent our first one to the Times-Union and the Troy Record. So we are also obligated this year, according to the EO, to send out a postcard notice. So the postcard notice is notifying our voters of the date of our vote, which is June 9th, as well as the date of the budget hearing. So this is new. We are recommending to have our budget hearing and adding that to our budget calendar for May 27th. So what's really interesting is the absentee ballots. So this is quite an undertaking. We have 9,500 registered voters in Cohoes, and that is according to our that is according to, again, our rolls and the register that we do get from Albany County. So this is quite an undertaking, and we're very grateful because BOCES now is offering an option for component school districts to have them take care of all the printing for the ballots, all the envelopes and stuffing all the envelopes and mailing it out. So we would still pay for the postage, and the way the postage paid return envelope works, that's called an indicia, and we only pay for the ones that we receive back. So we're not paying for people who don't, vote and send back their ballot. So that's good, and we already have that agreement and that taken care of with the U.S. mail system. So I think it's a good option. It's also aidable. So we are going to pursue that. So they'll take care of it for us. Property tax report card. Oh, what's interesting about the ballots is that they do have to be received by 5 o'clock on June 9th. And according to the executive order, we cannot take late ballots. So we'll talk more about what the canvassing and the counting of the ballots will look like in a future board meeting, but we can't accept them after 5 o'clock. The property tax report card. So that is due May 22nd, and it aligns with our May 20th board meeting. So we are recommending that we adopt our budget at the May 20th meeting. So we can talk more about that. So the governor did not say anything about a revote if our budget is not passed. We'll already be into the budget year. So we don't think it will be a possibility to have a revote. So, but we'll see if there is any new language about that. Board elections. So nominating petitions are due May 11th. No signatures are required, and the candidates will be listed on the ballot alphabetically. So we have already sent out a notice to our Blackboard notice, so people are aware of this. I know that Joanna did send the nominating petition to the 3 candidates. Again, Margaret is running again, so she did send it to Margaret, and we do have 2 other candidates before COVID, so she sent those out, and it's on our website. So if people are interested, then they can contact Joanna Maloney to send that in. Next slide, please. So the governor also talked about, well, what is the plan to reopen schools? So he posed a number of questions that he wants schools to consider, and we will at some point be required to submit a plan, a reopening plan to state ed. So just to review some of the questions he asked, well, how can schools monitor the spread of COVID? How do we instill parent confidence and reinforce student safety? And I would like to add, well, how do we instill staff confidence and safety? Because I think that's a huge piece of this whole plan. When and how will extracurricular activities reopen? Do protocols for special student populations change? What steps need to be taken to ensure student mental health? And what about any alternative calendar? So I think he's thinking, how do you ensure social distancing? Do you have students, a group come in the morning, a group come in the afternoon? Do you do alternate day? So again, I don't know the answers to any of these questions. There are still so many uncertainties, but what we are starting to do is plan. There is a document that Cap Region BOCES has developed, and I have shared it with my admin council team. We are reviewing it. Principals are going to start meeting with their building leadership teams so that we can engage our stakeholders. And I'm also asking that my directors develop a plan. For example, our director of athletics, what is our plan for athletics? Facilities, let's see, technology, food service. So there's so many different areas that we really need to be thoroughly planned. And also, as I said, engage our stakeholders, our parents, our community, so that we can instill confidence, and that will be our goal there. So next slide, please. So there are some monies available through FEMA. So when we do prepare for opening, we are going to need a number of materials and supplies and equipment. And so I'm going to have Stacy talk about how we are accessing these monies.
So there is a federal declaration. It's called DR 4480, and that covers emergency protective measures related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Schools are eligible to participate in this program through a request for public assistance. So we did initiate that request. It's high-level information. It's the school district's information and the point of contacts and our intent to participate. The program is through reimbursement, whereby the federal government would reimburse us for 75% of eligible costs. There is a minimum threshold in order to qualify. It is $3,300. Reasonable and necessary emergency protective measures that are for health and safety would qualify, such as PPE, so personal protective equipment, disinfecting equipment, and materials, thermometers, masks, face masks, gloves, etc. We need to meet and comply with all federal, state, and local procurement requirements. So we need to actively solicit minority and women-owned businesses as part of the process. And we would need to factor in any insurance claims or any other funding sources that were available to us.
Thank you. Stacy, how much do you think we will be able to submit in these items that we really need?
So our director of facilities is working on obtaining quotes for all of the PPE equipment. We have reached out to our nurses on their recommendations for thermometers. So I think we will have more than enough to meet the minimum threshold.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next slide, please. So since our last board meeting, the Division of Budget has given some estimates and updates on the state finances. So they are estimating that the state that receipts have fallen by 13.3 billion. That's 14.1% from the last plan that was issued in February. So again, not long ago, but it seems like a world away. So their updated plan includes 8.2 billion in further reductions, which includes school districts, in absence of additional federal aid. So we're all hoping we get federal aid, but it's not clear if that will happen. They expect total state spending to decline by 7.3 billion over the previous year. This is a decrease of 7.1%, which is the largest decline since the Great Depression. So right now, advocacy is so important, and I have joined the other superintendents in the CAP region, and we have sent letters to the governor, to Congressman Tonko, as well as to our senators Gillibrand and Schumer on the dire need that school districts are in. Next slide, please. So the magnitude of this impact to school districts is still uncertain. The state will release an updated plan with more specifics by mid-May. We are being advised not to adopt a budget until after the mid-May aid projections are released. And the first measurement period concluded April 30th. So we should know by May 15th what that impact is and if there is a take back in foundation aid for the district. and how much that is. So we should know next week, at the end of next week. Yes. So what does this mean for our school district? So let's just take a little walk back in time, our prior life, right? So pre-COVID-19, we anticipated a 3% increase in foundation aid. So that amounted to roughly $500,000. So let's now go to April. The enacted state budget did not include any increase in foundation aid for school districts. So we were flat. That's what that means, no increase. And now the governor is advising that because of state finances, there is that potential for takebacks, okay? And that could be up to 10%. So let's just say that we do get a 10% take-back, which could begin early next week or at the end of next week. That could be $1.67 million in reduction for our school district. So this is pretty significant. Again, it's uncertain. We don't know, but this could happen. Next slide, please. Now I'll turn it over to Stacy.
So the proposed budget for 2020-21 school year remains flat. It's just about $43.9 million. Since our last meeting in April, there was no change in the net amount of the budget, but we'll discuss reductions and efficiencies. We did eliminate the CDTA contract completely from the proposed budget, and we were able to cap it to 3 days per week, which is a high school service. Next slide, please. So this is just a reminder regarding the tax cap and the tax levy. Our allowable levy is $16 million. It is a 2.32% increase, and that would allow for $363,000 in additional revenue. Something important to note that should we have the need to operate under a contingency budget, the levy would have to remain flat. Therefore, we'd have to make at least $363,000 in adjustments. There's a calculation, but that's the minimum number of adjustments that would be required. Tax cap calculation and impacts to our homeowners. The tax rate is estimated at $37.80. That is an estimate. It's based off of the city's estimated tax roll that will be finalized this summer. It's normally a July 1 deadline. There was an executive order where they could push that out 30 days. At this time, that hasn't been communicated that there is an intention to push that out 30 days. The impact on an average homeowner.
Stacey, do you think that the tax rate could change?
Yes, the tax rate.
Significantly because of COVID?
No, I don't think that the COVID will change the tax rate. No, I do not. The tax rate, if there's any changes to the tax roll, we do meet with the city each winter, and they didn't anticipate any significant changes, so I wouldn't anticipate any large changes. The average homeowner with a assessed value of the property with assessed value of $150,000 would see just about a $60 increase annually, and that would equate to $5 per month. Next slide, please. So the expense summary, the highlights here. Instruction and employee benefits are nearly 80% of the total budget, 78.5%. You see a growth in employee benefits of $279,000, and that is attributed to retirement contributions and health insurance premiums. Operations and maintenance, you see a decrease of $282,000. In the 19-20 budget, we had a capital outlay project of $100,000. That's obviously not included in the proposed budget. We also did reduce BOCES HR services under that line item. Transportation is our contracts are based off of estimates, but we did eliminate the full CDTA contract, so overall it's a 2% decrease to that line item. Debt service is based off our bond schedule. Next slide, please. Revenue summary, the key highlights here. Again, state aid is very uncertain. We do rely heavily on state aid, so between the state and building aid, it's 55% of our total revenue budget, so we're heavily reliant on aid. You'll note that property taxes are 37% budget. Consumer utility taxes, hardly any variance there. We're performing on trend there. Payments in lieu of taxes, you see a modest increase, and that's because we have 2 small new pilots, and that's based off of the schedules that's provided by the city. And key item, interfund revenues. So the $785,000, important takeaway here is we are going to be exhausting our ERS and TRS reserves in the proposed budget. So that $785,000 for the next budget would be a revenue gap. Also, with the instability with the market, we're not sure what the rates for ERS and TRS will look like, and they could significantly be impacted in the next budget, the next time we're preparing a budget. Next slide, please.
Okay, thank you, Stacy. So just again to summarize some of the features of our budget for the next school year. As Stacy said, budget growth is capped at 0%. The proposed tax levy increase is 2.32%. ERS and TRS, so that's the employee retirement system and also teacher retirement reserves will be exhausted. So that's a major concern for us. Our appropriated fund balance represents 0% of the total revenue, so we were able to get that down, so that's good. Obviously, we'd like to have more in our fund balance. That's money in the bank to weather a storm. Reductions and efficiencies included in the budget proposal amount to $1.6 million, so we have been able to close the gaps. So more specifically, I'll go through what that means. So first of all, I would like to preface this by saying that none of these decisions were easy. We first obviously looked at not reducing staff or making cuts to staff. This is very difficult. It's a difficult time, and we're very sorry about this. Some of our staff members who we have had to eliminate those positions, are young and they're starting their careers and they're doing a great job. And we definitely are very sad we won't be able to keep them. And then some are also have been here for a number of years. And so that's also heartbreaking. So I just wanted to preface that this was not easy. And these are our employees' lives, and I understand that. And it's really a tragedy. So remember, all of these budget items is a picture of our district when we were in better financial times. So unfortunately, this is where we are today. So district-wide, we have eliminated CDTA. And I think at the time when we brought it in, again, under better financial times, I think that was the right decision. But unfortunately, where we stand right now, it is the right decision to eliminate it. Northern Rivers, so we will have 2 clinicians, both fee-for-service model. This is a transition. We had 1 fee-for-service before, and then we had 1 through a BOCES COSER program. So they will both be fee-for-service. It will not cost the district any money, but our students will still have opportunities for counseling services and also to have connections and links to the larger network of healthcare professionals in the capital region. So we'll have one at the middle school and one at the high school. We've eliminated School News Notifier. We did have a retirement that we acted on in a previous board meeting. So again, shout out to Principal Brian Wood of our high school, who has decided to retire. We're not eliminating the high school position, but we are conducting interviews for his replacement, and confident that it will be an internal hire promotion. We've scaled down our BOCES grant writing services. We've reduced building subs. So now, again, we've reduced them, but what if, we need more subs next year because of COVID-19? Again, there are so many uncertainties, but this is where we are today. We've reduced equipment, furniture, materials, and supplies. We've reduced and eliminated field trips. We've reduced athletic uniforms. We've reduced curriculum writing. Other than that is through grants. And we've also eliminated, this is new, Huddle, which is for athletics, and Passport for Good, which is for our career exploration activities, for our community service, and for our clubs, and how we track that and interact with our students. Next slide, please. At our elementary schools, we did have a speech retirement, and we will not be replacing. We are eliminating a physical education position at the elementary level. We are also eliminating a teacher based on class sizes from Abram Lansing, and we will also follow that same model, and we will do the same also at Harmony Hill. We are eliminating 2 teacher assistant positions from Van Skyke, who did deliver AIS services. And this is a retirement, so elementary band. So this is, again, a sad story. We did bring back elementary band during the last economic downturn. It was eliminated, and it does break my heart. This was something that I felt strongly in 2016 about bringing back. But I believe at this time, I think it's not the right move to replace the position, because if we do need to make deeper cuts that are more drastic, I just don't see this surviving. So I think at this point it is the right decision. We've also reduced and almost virtually eliminated arts and education services. And again, I know that hurts. Hate to have to reduce the arts, but again, I think it's a decision we have to make. Middle school, so we are eliminating an aide position there. We do have a student going out of district. Very unfortunate. We've had to reduce our star instructional media librarian at the middle school to half-time. Eliminated our long time, stellar, highly valued security guard. So that hurts. I get it. But we are moving to expanding our safety officer model, which is a part-time model, and we would look to expand that to the middle school as well. So the middle school would not lose a service. It would just be supplied differently. We are eliminating the Advanced Robotics Club. Again, we weren't able to find an advisor for that club this year. So we are eliminating it for next year. Next slide, please. You can see the high schools as longest. They've taken the biggest hit here. So we are eliminating 2 full-time social studies teachers. We're eliminating a full-time English teacher. We are eliminating a full-time math teacher. We're eliminating a science teacher. So we did have a teacher who is leaving the district, so that will not result in any layoff. But I do want to say that, this is sad, because we now are bare bones, and AIS, we're not going to be able to fully support our students through academic intervention services at the high school. So it is a loss, and it definitely will be felt. We were able to reduce 0.4 world languages. That will not have any reductions to any of our full-time staff. What that means is that we did have 2 teachers who taught extra classes to accommodate the schedule. So we looked at a restructuring, so we were able to achieve that with no reductions to staff. So that is good. We've eliminated a TA position in our AIM program. We've eliminated a main office aide at the high school again, and 5 extracurricular clubs, as well as high school intramurals. So a lot there. Summer school classes, again, we've talked about this, not sure about summer school for this summer, but we do have minimum participation requirements, no out of district students for the future. We've reduced summer time for our guidance counselors. As Stacy did mention, the CAPIT program for our social worker who does come to us through BOCES, we were able to reinstate, but it still is a reduction to this year. But we were happy we were able to bring the program back for 3 days per week. We've eliminated the Care Alternative Program. That was our Holy Trinity program. And we've also eliminated a 10-month high school secretary. So yep. Next slide, please. So in all of my preparations here, I did go to the leadership of the 3 bargaining associations in our school district, Cohoes Principals Association, Cohoes Teachers Association, and our CSEA to request a district-wide salary freeze. I did propose that. What would it have meant for the school district? So if we were looking at a true freeze, which I did ask for, that would have been a $785,000 savings for the school district. Unfortunately, the associations made a unified decision that at this time they agreed to not taking any contractual concessions. Next slide, please. So what are our next steps? As I mentioned earlier, May 11th, all nominating petitions are due and they need to be filed with Joanna Maloney, our district clerk. May 20th, that is the date we are going to adopt the budget. The board will adopt the budget and then we will submit our property tax report card to state ed. You will notice that May 13th, that was scheduled as a board meeting. I am requesting that we eliminate that because we won't have any new information at that time. If we do get new information, we are expecting to get that May 15th. So we would still have time to communicate what it means and discuss that with the board on May 20th. May 27th, we have scheduled the budget hearing. June 3rd, we will be mailing out the budget notice. So what is the budget notice? So that is the old newsletter, the budget newsletter that we send out to all of our residents. So we are having a condensed version and we are required to send that out. So that is part of our timeline. And the annual budget vote will be held on June 9th and board elections. So that is our timeline. So the board did ask at our last meeting, how do we engage the community during this closure, during our virtual world? What can we do? So I posed the idea about engaging in a thought exchange, and we were able to get it up running, very quickly. So thank you to Erin Cagwin for doing that. So we asked a question. So our question was, what are some elements of our students' educational experience that you value most? The exchange was open up for 1 week, and that is their recommended time, either 7 to 10 days. So we met that. Pleased, we had 427 participants, 294 thoughts, and almost 15,000 ratings. So that was definitely commendable, because on average, our participants rated about 35 thoughts, where usually on other exchanges, it's more in the 20 to 30 range. So we had a lot of participation, and I thought that was really great. Next slide. So you can see that our participants did identify their roles. And the greatest, the largest group was our staff members at 44%. Next slide. So you can see all the top thoughts here are all, about our teachers and about how much our teachers care about our students. And I think it's very appropriate for Teacher Appreciation Week. And you can see that our teachers are highly valued. So all the top thoughts, all had to do with our teachers. So very, again, reaffirming. Next slide. So we put all of the thoughts into buckets with headings. So the heading that had the most thoughts was student support, and this is also great because all the thoughts had to do with, our students feel supported. Our students feel supported by our teachers. Our students or my children feel supported by staff members. So and they care about our kids. So that was, most of the thoughts were under that category. So again, very, very reaffirming for everything we're doing. Next slide, please. So this is just what they call a word cloud, and it just captures those words that were most frequently used. So you can see, small classroom sizes, academic report, support, environment, positive environment. So I like that as well. So if you would like to see the whole report, it is on our website and you can read the whole report. And I definitely invite our community members and our school members to take a look. So if there are questions, I'm happy to answer questions.
I have a question. It's Helen.
Hi, Helen.
Hi. So I don't want the teachers to by any means think that I don't respect their decision. I support them in whatever they choose. But you talked about a true freeze. Did you go in with any other offers or meeting, like, willing to negotiate or anything like that? I just want to make sure that we heard them out and didn't just.
Correct. So again, that great question. And, one of the members from the bargaining units did ask me that in our last conversation. I met in multiple conversations individually with each unit and also collectively. And they said they were being unified and they were not interested at this time in agreeing to any concessions, even a step increase or even one unit. Let's say, for example, let's say the Principals Association, taking concessions. So they were all in agreement in solidarity that they were not going to participate in any concessions at this time.
Okay.
Can I chime in? I did get a note from the unions just to provide some of their background, so I'm just going to read that real quick. It says, we'd like to provide some clarification as to why the bargaining units jointly chose not to freeze salaries. The CTA, along with the other two bargaining units, chose not to do a salary freeze at this time, since we were informed by the district that if a salary freeze was done, none of the positions that are currently being targeted for elimination would be brought back. The money from the salary concessions would be put into the fund balance in case it was needed due to possible state aid funding changes. Without assurances that concessions being asked to the bargaining units could guarantee jobs being saved, we could not agree to any salary concessions at this time. However, we did let the district know that if any issues that arise in state funding in the future, the units would not be opposed to revisiting the discussion of salary concessions. The leadership of the bargaining units would be more than happy to discuss our position at any time.
So Matt, that is correct. So I did phrase it this way. I explained it this way, that the state finances are so precarious right now that we need to be able to position our school district better so that we can weather the storm. This is an impending storm. So what does that mean? So we already know TRS and ERS are going up. Okay, we have to fund the state retirement systems for our employees. And because of the decline in markets and everything, we've already been, advised that you will need to pay more. So I was very, upfront with our bargaining units, and I explained, in order to weather the storm, we don't want to, we want to replenish those reserves for ERS and TRS. And we also want to have some extra monies and fund balance, because right now we're at 2%. So I will be honest and say that if next Friday we hear that there is a take back, it will, this could be catastrophic for the district. And a $1.67 million 10% reduction definitely would be catastrophic. Again, uncertainties, I get it. Do I know that it will be 1.67 million and a 10% take back? I don't know that. Will they apply the 10% equally across all districts in New York State? I don't know that. But I can tell you that we're in for a rough road. And that's why I went to the units to discuss this and how we could be in a better financial situation, how we could work together on behalf of our students and our taxpayers, because we can't forget that we are asking for an increase in the tax levy of 2.32. I'm very cognizant of our taxpayers at this time, because many of them have changed situations since we approved the levy, and that was before COVID. So that was at an earlier board meeting before COVID. So I just thought that it was my job duty to speak with our units, and I did that, and so I did my best.
Yeah, even if the district were to take that, based on the uncertainties, the people that we add back could lose their job in 3 months, or next week, based on what we hear.
Right. So that's why I didn't say anything about bringing people back. I didn't feel that was fair, because I can't guarantee we can bring people back right now.
So that's where we are with that question. Were there other questions from the board?
This is Margaret. I have a comment. As far as I understand it, the bargaining units had all, tried to attempt to have discussions about meeting the district partially, on the way to a salary freeze. Maybe not a true salary freeze, but offering a 1% increase instead of a 3% increase. And the information that I've got after speaking to all three of them was that it was unmovable, that it was all or nothing. And it was said and communicated over and over, it was all or nothing, until the last meeting, when it was, well, if somebody wants to help the kids in the school district, it would be appreciated.
Yes.
The conversations leading up to that was an all or nothing comment, and there was no movement in trying to be able to come to an agreement to even meet them part of the way. They were willing to meet part of the way, and that conversation was stopped. I wasn't in them, but I've spoken to all three bargaining unit heads.
So,
and I heard this. I want to back Margaret up, because I heard very similar things. So
I just want to be clear that obviously if there's a unit that's going to give concessions, then that's going to help the school district. Obviously, it's fair if everybody's all in. I don't think my whole intention was, it's not fair if my principals agree or the CSEA folks agree and some don't. It was fair to get everybody. That was my intention of, and that's why I brought all three groups together. So, it was clear that anything would be acceptable and appreciated. And if they want to come back with me with a different offer, then I'm all ears, I'm open, and I hope they do.
Well, again, I think, this is Margaret. They had stated that if it does come to a position where we need to rediscuss this, we have met the gap. But let's just be clear, we were 1.2 million before this COVID all happened. And the concern is to put money away in a savings, or a fund balance that we've already misappropriated for years. I don't know why you can't work with people when they're willing to try. And at this point, I think the door is closed until
Margaret,
we find out something else.
I think it's unfair to say that the district has misappropriated funds.
Okay, maybe that's the wrong use of words. In my position, we've relied very heavily on fund balance. We've relied very heavily on fund balance to fund our budget. And Stacy has told us that that's not a good idea. She has said it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. But we've overspent our planned deficits for the last 2 years. So
With board
the
approval.
1.2. Okay, there are some things that the board did approve that were all recommended by the superintendent. All of them were recommended by the superintendent. But there are some things that the board did not approve. When you freeze a budget and you move money around for overspent budget codes, those are not, that's something that the board gets a list of transfers. We don't know what those transfers are. We just are to approve them. So they were all based on recommendations. There were 3 times in the last 5 years that I can remember that the board made a decision, a financial decision that was not recommended by the superintendent.
So I would also like to say boards of education adopt budgets. Okay, boards of education decide how much, in the end, how much fund balance is going to be applied to a planned deficit, what the tax levy is going to be. These are all decisions made by the Board of Education.
But the planned deficit was overspent. And those recommendations, we didn't come up with the amount of money that was going to be appropriated from the fund balance or the TRS or the ERS. We didn't come up with those funds. Those were given to us as recommendations of how we should proceed. This is the money that we need to do this, that, and the other. You've provided us with information that says this is how we're going to get there. We don't come up and say, you know what, Stacy, I want you to take, $1 million out of our fund balance. That's not what we do. Stacy's the expert in her area. I mean, you can't say that these were not your recommendations. It was.
No, but I think we absolutely played a part as board members in approving these budgets, and we made some choices that in hindsight, we could have made.
I absolutely agree with you, and I absolutely take ownership of this. I take ownership of it every single day. Every person that I talk to, I take ownership of it. I've been on this board for 5 years, and I have allowed it to happen because I've allowed to be given, this is what our need is, and this is how we're going to fulfill it. But you know what? I did my homework, and I won't let it happen again. I won't sit back. I won't make a consent. Yes, let's go ahead and do this if I don't agree with it, because you won't be able to go back for 5 years to see that I disagreed on anything, because typically that's not how we've managed things.
Other comments? Go ahead, Rick.
Do have a couple questions if you're done with that one. So just a few things have noted. My questions sort of hit both the COVID situation and the budget. Is what we've planned for the budget going to match up to what our challenges are going to be in the fall, both for probable social distancing situations, likely increased social emotional needs, and one of the big ones for me is the challenges we're going to have with what's likely to be the widest learning gap that we've dealt with in history. Because quite honestly, I put a lot of hours into helping my kids further their education each day. And if next school year is going to literally be another year in review, then I guess I would be pretty put off by that.
So, Rick, you're bringing up really great questions. This all bodes to our planning for reopening, especially how we are going to put in those social emotional supports, because our students, they need us now more than ever. How are we going to address learning gaps through priority standards? I know one thing at the elementary level, some teachers really want a loop, and can we do that across the board at elementary? We can't. but it's something that we can do in some classes. That means teachers would stay with the same group of kids. They already have a relationship with them. The kids would also stay together, and that teacher would have a better idea about learning gaps. That's one thing that doesn't cost anything that we're looking to do. The social distancing and just trying to operate and reopen under this pandemic, because it's not going to be over soon. Yes, we will have to spend more money in order to be able to do this. And I do not know right now what that looks like. We are looking at that and trying to get a better picture of the costs associated with reopening. But we are looking at it, but it's.
Yes, my concern is we shouldn't be looking at it. We should be prioritizing it because we have to make budget decisions soon. And to make budget decisions prior to fully understanding what our plan is seems to be a little backwards.
Well, I'd love to include you in our committee with our reopening.
You know, anything you need me for, I'm always make myself available.
I know. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it.
I have a question. Rick, were you done with yours?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Related to absentee ballots for the budget vote, is there a date where we think that those will be sent out? Do we know yet?
So that's why there is some safety going with BOCES, because they're able to procure, a much larger order, and there are cost efficiencies associated with that. So they're already working on that, and the only thing that we have to do, obviously, is complete the template. The mailing issue and the registered voter. So it's going to go out soon. That will be going out soon. So we'll be able to make that deadline.
Will we be able to?
Matt,
Yep, go ahead.
today on my call with BOCES, they said that the ballots would be mailed out by the 27th. That's their deadline right now. That's for the ballots.
Thank you, Stacy.
Okay.
I mean, do we know what the expense of doing the ballot? I mean, are we doing both of these mailings through BOCES? Have we investigated what the expenses are? Because right now we're paying people. If you're worried about stuffing envelopes, we have people that are sitting home that are being paid. So I'm just wondering what the cost is, if it's something that is most efficient for us to do, or if there is something that we can, support in-house with some of our employees that, are existing on our payroll. I'd like to try and see if we can make, not rush through and just say BOCES is the best choice. I want to know that it's the best bang for our buck. I know that we have to do it. I understand that there's, we have to meet whatever the governor says, but I want to make sure that we are doing our homework to not spend money that we don't need to spend.
Right. So the big thing is, again, postage. That's not aidable. The printing costs, again, we're going to be printing 9,500. We'll be, securing the envelope. So there are shortages on many of these items, which is why there is an advantage going through BOCES. And again, there is that aidability. So we did look at the numbers, and I mean, this isn't cheap. This isn't cheap. Just sending it out with the postage is about $35,000.
Okay, can you send us the breakdown of those numbers, what it's going to cost for BOCES, what it would cost us in-house, what materials we have a shortage of, and so that we can get an idea.
So in other mailings, so we do have to do the postcard. That's something we have to do. Again, Aaron Cagwin's helping us with that one. And then also the budget notice, and that's something, again, we're doing. So BOCES would only do the ballot.
I think Mark had something to say. I saw him raising his hand.
I think he needs to be unmuted.
Can someone on? Oh,
Unmuted. Thank you. A few things. First, Cohoes has relied on fund balance for long before Jennifer got here, and there's been people on each. There's been discussions on the board about our reliance on fund balance is going to catch up with us, and year after year we did, and it did catch up with us, and we see that that this was coming, and we can all visit each other, but we've used fund balance for many years, and here we are. I don't I we all take our share of responsibility, and now we have to deal with that, accompanied with the of the COVID, and everyone will feel the pain at all levels of government. Will feel the pain. I would hope that our bargaining units will come back to the table and specifically to them about direct student services, that whatever we can gain from the bargaining units will go to direct student service. And I would hope and be deeply disturbed if of that. This is a situation that we have not felt this depression. We've heard that said, and that's true. And the heart coming, we haven't seen anything yet. It's going to get nothing. It's going to get nothing but worse. I would sincerely hope. I believe our staff cares about our. And when we get, not if, but when we get more bad news, I would hope that to help us support our kids. And I would approach it from the perspective where we can gain will go toward direct service to our students. I'll also ask about some specifics as far as reductions. I'm very concerned about speech therapy, and when a student needs that kind of support, if they don't get it, they're going to struggle, and it's to see that. So I'd like to know, where do we stand with that service? I know there's been reduction. I'd like to know what that means in terms of students who need that help, getting that help.
Peggy, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, Mark, we're at the same level of speech services that we would have been at 2 years ago. 2 years ago, through the pre-K grant, we added a part-time speech teacher, and then also a part-time speech teacher through special ed. This year, we weren't able to pre-K, so we did convert it to full-time general ed. Brings us back to 4 speech teachers. We've worked with Karen Renessi and Erin Hill to look at how this would work, and we're confident that the plan will work. Again, it is a reduction, but it's where we were before the pre-K grant 2 years ago.
Okay, thank you. I'm also questioning summer school this summer. We have a price, a cost of running a summer school program.
So
Do we have an idea what that is?
So we don't have an idea right now. I know that there are a lot of relaxed provisions for passing students this year. So I don't have a full picture of how many students at the high school may need it. But it's something that we are working on, and again, school isn't over yet, but we are looking into it, and I agree, if we don't need to run summer school, then it could be a cost savings for the district.
And I think with respect to summer school, it doesn't look like the COVID restrictions, we're going to be much better off come summer school than we are. And I would question that expense if summer school is a situation. I don't know what we get out of that, or what are. I think there could be a savings with respect to summer school. With the fall, it's I don't know how on earth we can. We hear again and again from our medical experts to expect this second, and this could be deja vu all over again with the fall. So I think I expect this is happening, but I just want to reinforce it and emphasize it. Let's look at our virtual learning. Can we bring in some type of a hybrid system where we may not, students may not be in 5 days a week, their teacher on less than normal, but there is some teacher contact that in with some virtual learning. So we have a type of a hybrid approach. So we some degree of face-to-face. I know that's easier said than done, but I'm hoping that we're looking at that. I'm also wondering about extraordinary costs I can see coming with sanitizing these buildings to the extent that we've never had to do before, and I'm sure that there's considerable cost involved with that. So budgetarily, if that's in the mix or not, but I just couldn't help but wonder that. And the last thing is none of this is easy. It also is heart-wrenching. We brought the band back to life. See that go again. I know that's not an easy decision. I just, if there's a that could be reviewed, and we've seen the data again and again. These students, there's a correlation with music and these groups, and it's we've that's been demonstrated that it's not an it enhances learning, and I know no one go. I'm sure everybody hates to see it go, but I'm just wondering if there's any way we could look at that issue. Thank you.
So Mark, just a few comments. So I love your idea of a hybrid approach, to bringing kids back, that maybe on certain days, certain kids would be there. So I think it's very a realistic, idea and plan. Now, you remember the governor did talk about his phases. He has 4 phases about reopening and unpausing. And in order to move along the continuum of the phases, you have to keep meeting certain conditions regarding COVID. So schools are phase 4. So we're the very last phase. So we may not get to phase 4 for a while. We don't know. But that's the indicator that he and the benchmarks he is using for that. So as far as cleaning supplies and the level of cleaning, absolutely, it's very, very worrisome, and the safety of everybody. So again, a lot of uncertainties that we'll just have to keep trying to plan for. And the elementary band, again, how do you choose where the cut should be, Mark? So it was a tough decision. At least in this case, we don't have to lay anybody off.
This is Helen. Again, I just wanted to back up Mark on that too. As somebody who's an arts lover, watching it just repeatedly take cuts, it's always the first that kind of has to go, and it's a little demoralizing after a while. But I understand, but it's hard to see, it's hard to watch, because we know how much it actually does benefit the kids. And I also want to go back again about the whole teacher thing, and I think we all need to take our share of responsibility. And this isn't really an oops, live and learn situation. This is huge. This is affecting people's lives, deeply affecting their lives. So, I want to go back. I would like to go back to the teachers and really listen and work with them. And really listen to what they have to say, because I can appreciate what they were saying in that letter that Matt read. I really can. And I want them to also know that, at least personally, and I'm sure there's other people, I ultimately respect their decision and whatever they come up with at the end. This is their lives too. And I just want them to know that I personally feel that way.
So I'm sorry, Helen, are you finished?
Yes.
So this is Nadia. I have a couple of things. Mark talked about direct student-facing services. Helen talked about going back to the teachers. Rick and I spent several hours with the bargaining unit leadership, and Jennifer and Stacy and Peggy, going over the budget line by line. We looked at all of the recommendations that Jennifer had put forth pre-COVID. We looked at other things in the budget. all three bargaining units were very firm on mental health services being put back in. I'm pleased to see that Capit was put back in for 3 days. A little bit disappointed that Jennifer chose to recommend restoration of the communication specialist for 4 days rather than put that BOCES money towards student services. But I'm glad to see that the Capit went back in some form.
Hi, this is Margaret. I just have, I mean, a couple of things that I've already, that I kind of had on my list to discuss. I kind of had the impression this was more of like a workshop meeting, that we were going to get reviewed information from the meetings that have happened. But I did notice a couple of things. First of all, in the expense summary, it's showing our transportation change as a negative $31,000, which I'm wondering, is that all of CDTA savings? Because I was under the impression it was a much larger dollar figure than $31,000.
Stacy, can you answer that? Thank you.
Yep, this is Stacy Mackey. So yes, CDTA, the contract is fully eliminated. So the initial cost, $120,000, that's been fully eliminated. The Star and Strand contracts are based off a May CPI, so it's an estimate of those contract expenses. Also, field trips were not fully eliminated; they were reduced, but not fully eliminated.
Okay.
So yes, that does represent CDTA full $0 figure for the contract.
Because we're expecting the Star and Strand or the RFP to come back higher?
Right, yeah, we have to expect some growth in contracts, yeah, yep.
I mean, that's a lot of money.
An estimate, it could come back lower,
$80,000.
but.
Have we looked, now I know I brought this up at the last meeting, did we look at piggybacking any of our services with local districts? Our kids are going to the same places. Are we, taking advantage of all of those opportunities to have a savings?
I can talk to BOCES about piggybacking. Yep, we can do that.
Okay, it's a big line item, and if it's something that we can coordinate with other districts, we're not the only people in a spot of needing to save some money, so we're going to have to think outside the box. I know it's something that's allowable now, so if we could take advantage of whatever opportunity that, to save any kind of money, I'm 100% agree with Mark. Whatever student services should be our priority right now, because not only are the kids going to need the academic support when they get back, there's a lot of them that aren't engaged right now. They're not. A lot of people that I've talked to said less than 50% of their kids. So that's a lot to even think about that aren't connected with us on daily. So Nadia, agree. One of my messages I had written down here, things that we had proposed in the initial budget for reduction, the communication services. Again, that's not a student-facing service. It's not, the kids aren't actually benefiting from that. We had discussed tutoring restructure. I don't see that anywhere. I know that it was based on a conversation about an MOA with the CTA. I don't see anything on our current reductions to show that any of those conversations happened. And if we are back going to restructure the tutoring.
Margaret, we are in the middle of conversations. Brian, Laura, Scott, Matt, and we'll share when we have a, more of a plan. We've been having those discussions.
Okay. Line item budgets, I guess. I did go through, again, I thought we were going to be discussing some, more of a workshop thing. Again, I'm going to agree with Mark. I don't think that we should even consider summer school at this point. I did look at it. Instructional salaries for summer school is at least $25,000. If we can save $25,000 this year, we have other vehicles to be able to get kids to recover credits. We do. We have credit card recovery programs. We now have this virtual learning set up. If we can save any kind of money, there's a lot of districts out there that don't offer summer school. I feel like if we put the money into the regular school year to support our kids when they need it, September to June, maybe we'll have fewer that are participating, but $25,000 is a lot of money. I'm also seeing in the budget, if we're reducing or eliminating our elementary music position, there's about $1,500 in the budget for a NISMA accompanist that, not sure if that's been taken into account or not.
So you asked a lot of questions. So first of all, NISMA, remember that is mostly secondary and elementary. So was that under the line item of elementary or just district wide?
Well, they're all coded by building.
Okay, so then we would update that. Yeah, we would update that. So a few things you talked about busing.
We still have chorus though, correct?
Yes, we'll still have chorus.
So we would need the accompanist for chorus.
So Stacy, I have questions about transportation. I know we have looked in to piggybacking on rides to BOCES or to some of the, the BOCES special ed placements. I mean, I know we do partner with Waterville on a lot of those rides so we can achieve efficiencies. So I believe we're already doing that. Now, the other thing is that even though it looks like the cost has increased, those are still expense-driven aids that we would gain aid on for the following school year, correct? So even if the cost goes up, which isn't great, I get it, because we have to pay it this year in order to realize some aid for next year. But isn't that correct, Stacy?
Yeah, our aid is about 74%, and it is an expense-driven aid, yes.
Okay. Let's see. So you also talked about summer school. So again, we'll have a better idea of our student failures. I think the key thing is students who have an opportunity to still pass a Regents course. So again, we have to weigh these decisions, but we would never spend close to what we would have spent in a face-to-face summer school program. So absolutely, if we're looking for savings, so we'll look to see how we conduct that program. Peggy?
Yeah, if I could just mention, so if we, and I agree, we need to look at everything. We need to look though, if we do cut summer school, what is the impact on what we're proposing as cuts to the high school currently? Will we have enough AIS and will we have enough Apex given some of those listing of cuts at the high school? So we would have to look at both and see how they balance each other out. But I agree, we would not need to go to that level of expense in summer school.
And then lastly, I did want to address the communication specialist. And that's Aaron, he's our host tonight. So before COVID, I was in agreement to reducing Aaron from 4 days to 3 days. But since we've been under this pandemic and this closure, communications has become the most important thing we do every single day. So just for example, this whole new voting ballot. I mean, again, Aaron takes the lead on how we're going to communicate this to our families, to our students. How are we going to update our website? How are we going to, send out a postcard and what is that going to look like? And send out our budget news. And he also works with students. For example, he was filming the 4 senior performers in Chicago at the high school and then getting this out and making sure that we are regularly communicating all of our highlights and that's happening in our buildings. So even though Aaron is 4 days this school year, he is housed in our building and he is flexible with his time And so even if somebody wants him on Friday, he works out, you know, his schedule, because again, it's a shared service. So that last day he works on other projects assigned through BOCES. But I feel very fortunate that we've had him during this crisis, because he's with us 4 days a week, but he's been working 7 days a week, 24/7. And there's no way we could have been able to have accomplished all of our communications without him during this pandemic.
Thank you, Jennifer. This is Margaret. I don't doubt, I don't think anyone doubts what an excellent job Aaron is doing. I don't think that's a question. The question is, you know, $25,000 for a day is a lot of money. And there are other districts out there that don't have a media specialist, and their administrators and their office staff, they manage all of these things. I just don't think it's a luxury that we can afford right now. We are laying off. I mean, I can't even, I lost count how many people that are Cohoes employees, that are Cohoes residents, people that live here and work here. And, you know, I just don't think this is a luxury that we can afford at this point in time. I do appreciate what you're saying. And I, you know, fully understand everything that he's been involved in. But again, I feel like that's a luxury to have a nice shiny brochure. I don't know that that's the priority in our community.
It's a regulation. Okay, these are regulations that we have to comply with. And he
I understand.
has to comply with the regulations.
That's correct. However, sometimes we have to do more with less. And sometimes that means that those responsibilities are shared to other people. I'm not saying that we don't comply with our regulations. I'm not saying that we miss any deadlines. I'm not saying any of that. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, I don't personally feel like this is a responsibility of our money. I don't. I think he does an excellent job. I mean, but right now in the position that we're in, and Stacy telling us that we're still going to have to make up $700,000 next year. I mean, we really need to make decisions that are not based on convenience and what makes it easier for us. We are talking about bare bones.
Are there other comments or things from board members?
I mean, I wasn't really, I'm sorry, it's Margaret. I wasn't really finished with everything that I had questions on. If you would allow me just to finish up, I would appreciate it. Again, I thought this was going to be more of a conversation, so I'm sorry if I'm like taking up a lot of time, but there are things that I have questions on. BOCES administrative cost, I'm wondering, what is that? What is a BOCES administrative cost for $148,000 in the line item budget?
That's each participating district share. It's a set non-negotiable fee, that and the capital expenditure for BOCES. They're both set, they're not negotiable.
So is
Did
that
we vote
based
on that? The board voted on that at our last board meeting, correct? On the
They voted on the BOCES budget, yes. Yep.
Okay, it's not, I'm just wondering what that charge was. How is it allocated by district? Is it by size, by student population? How are we given that number? Is it split evenly within all the components?
I believe it's by size and by, I want to say poverty level, because when I looked at how much we're paying compared to some other districts, ours was lower, much lower than other districts.
It's not split evenly. I can share the calculation.
Thank you, Stacy.
Yep.
Other questions on summer work that you know, we have summer BLT planned in here, $13,000. Again, we had talked about reducing conferences. I didn't really expect there to still be funds in conference codes, thinking that that was going to be one of our reductions for this year, but there's still money in conference codes. So
there are some required trainings. Is that professional development or conference for, are you looking at BOCES or are you looking at our local budget?
I mean, I'm looking at our line item budget.
Okay, so there are some professional development that has to happen for prevention intervention training for our staff in the behavior classrooms and some of our other classrooms. And those are requirements. They have to do that so that they maintain their certification in those areas. So we talked about making sure that there.
I mean,
So that's one area that we have to maintain.
is this something that we might be able to use the opportunity of within the closure to be able to provide those trainings without having to pay stipends over the summer for them to come in and be able to participate in training or do it virtually, whatever that means?
We explored with our trainers who are Rachel and Keith, the day one, a creation of a virtual day one, going forward even, to save on sub costs. Day two can't be virtual. That has to be physical. We have people, we're looking at that. I have the list from Karen and Aaron. We have trainings that end at different dates throughout, depending on when staff came in, and also if we have any new people who need to be hired, but we are looking at that. So that's just, I would say that's the only area that we absolutely have to have, and we are looking at how to reduce it and have it be, those staff only.
Okay, thank you. Also a note on one of our previous, well, the 0.5 library media specialist, there was an indication on there that we were going to look at cooperating with the Cohoes library. I'm not sure what that means or if there's been any progress in that area. Are we looking to share a position? I don't know. There's a notation on the line item budget. I just don't know what that
So
means.
I know the city's struggling as well, trying to maintain all their positions, as well as the Cohoes Public Library is closed right now. I don't believe there's an opportunity to share, but at this time under COVID, but I will contact the mayor.
Thank you. I also on here, we have medicated processing for a part-time. I know we have a part-time employee coming in. It's almost $10,000. As we're laying off staff, I know this person is doing a great job, but they're also retired from our district and they're also, getting those benefits, and we're laying staff off that, if there's a potential of being able to look at and see if we could fill a retiree position with something part-time that we might have available for some of our layoffs. I would appreciate if that could be investigated. Athletic stipend, I did notice this on here and I didn't see it on the cost savings, but I did think that it was good to bring up that, the cost of the summer stipend for the athletic director previously had been pretty significant because it was a per diem rate per day. And he actually brought it to us and we were able to, Jennifer was able to negotiate something that made sense for everyone, but that was also another reduced cost savings, just so that people are aware. I know that we brought this up in other meetings, but I would completely support the relocation of district office. I think it's not usable, aidable space. A $30,000 savings, again, I mean, all the things that I'm talking about, these could be, positions that are really vital and really necessary. The library media specialist is going to be a loss. Our family engagement specialists are going to be a loss. We're going to need those supports. And so whatever monies we could save on things that are not directly affecting students, I think we need to investigate, things like cell phones. I don't know what contractually, but we pay $10,000 a year for cell phones. If there's a different avenue we could explore, like possibly you get a stipend instead, because I understand that, administrators do use their cell phones on district time, but maybe there's some other avenue that we could explore that doesn't cost us $10,000.
One second. So,
Yeah.
so Margaret, let me just interject a few points here that you brought up that I wanted to talk about. So great idea about the cell phones. We just started actually looking at that. And you know, we can control costs. There are some people that maybe don't need a cell phone anymore. So that definitely is something we're looking at. So great idea. Also, Page Ave, and what I'm actually doing right now is formulating a plan of moving everybody into the buildings and see if I can accomplish that. We wouldn't obviously all be able to be together, but what could that look like? Where can I put people? Because you know, I think moving to Page Ave was, you know, a right decision at the time. Now we're under different times, so we have to make different decisions. So that is something I'm already working on.
And just the last thing I wanted to say is the full-time security officer, the reduction of this position, I'm not sure, you know, where it came from. I don't know who had suggested it or anything, but I'm just going to say it again, just because it's coming up now. I don't support the model of a part-time security officer. I didn't when we started, you know, having them up at the high school. I feel like there is a benefit to having the same person there every day, same person that knows the same history. Sometimes they're dealing with our most difficult students, or you know, they're able to build those relationships and de-escalate situations before they come situations. A lot of times they have really good relationships with our law enforcement. I feel like the knowledge that this person has in our district after so many years, they know the people, they know the players, they know who they've got to look out for. I just don't think a part-time model is something that benefits our buildings. And I know the part-time model makes sense because we don't have to pay benefits, but you know, I think that on the day-to-day, it's something that we should really consider. Because it does affect the buildings to not have the same person there every day and to not know what happened yesterday or the day before or last Wednesday when they're dealing with something on this Tuesday. You know, there is a benefit to having some consistency in the position. So just wanted to say that.
Are there other remaining board members that had other comments they wanted to bring up or questions?
I would like to say something. This is Sue.
Go ahead.
Okay. Dr. Spring, how do we, or Stacy, do we know how much we would save per year by moving central office back, let's say, to the middle school? What would we save by doing that? What would be the yearly savings?
Stacy, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so the operating cost would include the part-time cleaner. We have repairs and inspections, landscaping, and utility costs. It's about $30,000 a year.
And what would it cost for that last move? How much would it cost to move everybody out? And are we looking at anybody being able to rent that? Is there anybody, I know I think we even discussed UPK, right? Wasn't that, didn't that come up at some point? I mean, how would we use that building other than just let it sit there and pay for it?
Well, a lot of the classrooms at Page Avenue have been converted to office space. So there's very limited opportunity for classrooms here at Page Avenue. I think the only room that might qualify is the PD room that's located in the basement. I'm not sure. We do have space concerns at each of our buildings, so I'm not really sure where we would be relocated and if there would be any improvements that would be required in order for us to be operable in those spaces. The move, I think the last time we moved, we used a combination of a moving staff and our maintenance staff. I think the cost was below $10,000. I'm not sure what it would be. We could go and get an estimate for that, but I think the last time we moved it was under $10,000. So okay.
Yes.
One clarification. So the special ed offices have been there. I mean, they've been there forever.
Yes. Yes.
And they have to stay together. So that's a big group. So again, I'm looking at where I could relocate everybody. I'll continue to work on that, and I can share that with the board.
Yeah, Sue, can I mention pre-K? Part of our pre-K grants, and some of these were competitive grants. We talked about pre-K teachers being able to communicate and collaborate with kindergarten teachers. We talked about pre-K students having other opportunities within the building. So, and it's also then another place for families to have to drop students off after dropping other children off. So those are some other considerations.
Okay, I also have a couple of questions regarding the mental health of our students. If we come back in September, I'm not really optimistic about that. Our kids are going to need some help. And I don't know if our social workers alone can handle that. I think these family liaisons that we have, I just feel that our staff in each of these buildings is going to need help, and our principals. And these kids, I mean, just like life will never be the same again, some of these kids will never be the same again. They're not what left us in June or in March. What comes back in September is going to look very different. Secondly, not only that, but we may be dealing with having those same children having to wear a mask, not being able to hug friends, hug a teacher. We've got a lot to consider here when we lay off those two liaisons. I mean, they have direct contact with our families, and if they didn't have much before, they definitely need to have that now. And I'm just really concerned about what we're facing once we get back in that classroom. We also are probably going to have to look at a school day. I mean, how is that school day going to look? Are we social distancing, and that class of 26 fifth graders is going to become 13 because you have to space them out? How do you tell 16 kindergartners they can't play together? I mean, we've just got a lot to consider here, and that's multifaceted and all encompassing in that mental health issue that I'm addressing. So I don't know. I'm just really concerned about what we're saving and what we're getting rid of, so to speak.
This is Helen. Oh, sorry, Sue, were you done? I'm sorry.
I just want to add, can we look at further into some clubs? Can we look? I hate to be this person. I was an advisor. I love sports. I've always been involved in sports. I've always supported sports, but can we look at is our football program holding on by itself? Can we combine with another school district or two other school districts? Do we have low numbers in another sport that we can look at? I just feel we need to keep digging and think about who's going to have contact with our kids. And yes, sports are important. And listen, when I was a teacher, when those parents came in for a conference and their child wasn't doing homework, the first thing those parents would usually say is, "That's it, you're done with soccer," or "That's it, you're done with football." And I always discourage that because they need that. But we've got it, and I'm not suggesting getting rid of a sport. I'm suggesting looking at combining with other districts. I feel we need to look at other things here. And I also want to ask about we put on a behavioralist part-time that was a psychologist, if I'm not mistaken. So it was part-time psychology in the elementary school and a part-time behavioralist. And we were attempting to hire a 0.5 psychologist Do I have that correct?
Yes.
And, okay, but we couldn't find that part-time psychologist.
Correct.
But, where is that? I mean, is that money built into the budget here?
No.
Are, okay, so we saved money by not,
Well, it wasn't in any budget. It would have been an addition in this year's
Correct.
budget.
that's correct. So we're still going with that part-time behavioralist, part-time psychologist? Okay. What's
No,
happened?
unfortunately, that had to be, we were not able to include that, unfortunately.
Well, that psychologist is still with us, right?
Right, but we didn't add. We
I
want,
understand, but
Right.
the full-time, is that full-time, that person that was the full-time psychologist, is she still
shared.
part psychologist and part-time behavioralist?
She's shared
She's
between,
full-time, but
she's full-time, shared between Van Skyke and Abram Lansing.
as just a psychologist?
Correct.
So she's not a behavioralist in any of the buildings, which is what I thought she was helping us do.
Well, she's very skilled and she is very knowledgeable of working with students on behaviors and working with teachers.
Okay, so she's still doing that. She's
Yes.
still playing that role. Okay.
But it's, her position is difficult between both buildings. So that's why we were hoping, to have her just in one building, but unfortunately, we're not able to realize that model.
And it's going to be more difficult when we come back. It's going to be even more difficult for her. There are going to be all kinds of behaviors. There are adults having behaviors out there right now.
Yeah.
We're in tough times, but we've got to look at who's going to have direct contact with these kids who, again, are being abused at home, don't want to get out of bed because they're afraid to get out of bed. The ones not eating. I mean, it's rampant, and not just here, not just in Cohoes, but that's all we're worried about right now. We have a lot of things to look at, and laying off people that have contact with these kids is not a good idea. It's just not. I mean, I think this board has to reinvestigate some things here.
So thank you, Sue.
This is Helen. I just wanted to, how I feel about student safety right now and how concerned I am about it. And I want to back Sue up on that. And, I heard a story and Sue said the thing about, it's not going to just end when we get back to school. There's going to be other long, drastic effects from this. And I had one teacher tell me about how for some of these younger students, like really young students, the only physical affection that they get are hugs from their teachers. That's it. That's what they get. That's how they get any affection. You know that these children need that to thrive. And it's going to be such a difficult thing to combat when we get back into the school year. And these are the long effects that I just want to make sure that we're addressing, that this isn't just about getting to September. This is about getting kindergartners now to their senior year. I mean, it's going to have massive, massive effects on these kids.
We understand completely. We understand, Helen, and we're working to, mitigate and, all of these challenges.
Other comments from board members? Okay, I do have a slew of different comments from the public, which I will pull up now. So there's a comment from a couple of questions from Dave Boleski that I think were mostly answered, but I'm going to cover again. So I would like to know the total costs to taxpayers for the next year of salary increases for teachers, principals, and other unions. And so what we had talked about was $750,000 would have been a flat amount if there were no increases.
$785,000, yes.
What the percentage increases for each unit, for each of their salary increases. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I can work with Stacy to get that response.
I can tell you the dollar amount. I don't know the percentage. I sent that to the board.
So CSEA is the only one that's based off a percentage? CPA
Okay.
is a flat dollar amount, and then CTA is a combination of step and percentage. Okay?
I think the CSEA percentage was around 3%.
Yeah, it says 3%, correct.
Dave wanted to know if the Board of Education requested various unions take a freeze, or if that we will request that they freeze or take a reduction. And so we've already talked about how there has been conversations about a freeze, and I'm pretty sure that the consensus on the board here is that anything that we can do to help save things will be beneficial. You know, and to our students. So any concessions at all are very helpful. So yeah, that's that question there. A question or comment from Kayla Cole. A couple of comments in here about the family engagement specialists. So Kayla was just stressing the need for the 2 family engagement specialists, since each of them have irreplaceable skills that our families need to take advantage of, especially returning, as we've talked about, a post-COVID-19 world. It's Kayla's belief that we're given the opportunity to work alongside each other and build a functional position that could be a strong force to support our families. And the reason the family engagement specialist position is valued at the middle school is because Kayla is great at her job and has multiple agency ties and contacts across Albany County, and that she loves doing that work. Mackenzie is born Cohoesier and has deep community ties, and instead of being split, that Kayla believes they should be given the opportunity to work together to combine their strengths and support our students, families, and staff. And I know we've already talked about the questions that we come up here are, if we were to support these positions, where do we take the money from elsewhere that would support them? Do we make further cuts in the arts? That's an area we could do. Those are the real kinds of questions we have to figure out, really, with what is most important to us, what's the most essential to us at this time. If folks want to chime in, they can just let me know. I'm going through a bunch of these. Again, a comment from John Skeets, and I'm not going to read all of this because there's quite a bit here, but again, reiterating that on the forefront are the middle school and high school parent liaisons, and how they've been an integral part of bringing positive change to our schools. The work that they've done on attendance and getting kids to school has been absolutely incredible, staying in contact with families constantly, and those who have a history of chronic absenteeism, and creating an incredible track record of getting those kids to school. Also, I'm just reading through because I said there's quite a bit in John's note here, but their support and advocacy for the homeless population that we encounter has been phenomenal. Their love for the community and how they've reached out once schools were closed to create and support a food drive in the community. Again, just all of these things about how important they are to the district, and how he believes we should prioritize that position above almost anything else. So thank you, John. A note about returning to schools, or question, I should say, from Dawn Drew about will we be taking temperatures of students every day? How does that look like? What does opening the school look like? Do we have to adjust times? I don't even know if we're anywhere near being able to answer that yet, but I know that those are the types of questions that we're working on trying to figure out answers to. A question from Bill Smith about seniors, about who don't get their day to walk across the stage. Are there any plans to recognize them? And special moment for our 8th graders as well. I can speak to the seniors a bit. I joined in on the committee call for trying to figure out what we can do for our seniors, and we are trying to figure out things that we can do for them. I'm not as familiar. I wasn't part of conversations related to the middle school. If anyone is able to chime in on those, I'm sure they're having those conversations as well.
Matt, may I just, is it possible to go back to John Skeet's comments?
Yes, yeah, of course.
And read everything he sent in, because I mean, these people took the time to, you know, send that in. I feel we need to hear what he's got to say.
I would forward it to the board. I just don't want to take the time up during this public meeting to share the thoughts with everybody. I just didn't, I wanted to keep it to the, 2 minutes or so that we're supposed to keep it to.
Okay, thanks.
Question from, I think there's another question from Patty Krajewski later on as well. But how did we get into this financial crisis? For what Patty understood was that it was happening pre-COVID-19. Wasn't there spending we could have controlled, like consultants or CDTA? And I know I can talk a little bit about this, but Stacy can chime in as well. There were a lot of different factors. Obviously hindsight's 2020. If we knew we were gonna be where we are, we certainly would have made different decisions, I think. But we've also had a lot of unplanned expenses. For instance, we've talked about it before, but we had nearly $100,000 expenses for a nurse for a student who joined us this year. We've had new number-fold increases in charter school expenses over the last number of years. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars for that. There's just been a lot of other costs that we haven't, we don't have control under, that we've been hit with. And at the same time, we've been noted for having too high of a fund balance, what 2 years ago, maybe? And we were told we have to spend down that fund balance. And so that's what we've been doing. And at the same time, here we are, and we don't have a fund balance to support us in a tough time. So those are just some of the factors. There are a lot. Stacy, if you have anything else.
In 18-19, we saw a 43% increase in charter school enrollment. It was $250,000 unbudgeted, unplanned. Again, we have a population that's very turbulent, those special ed. We had a student move in who required a one-on-one nurse, right? That was for this year. We have relied heavily on fund balance and reserves, and obviously using your savings to pay for operating expenses is never a good idea. And so we've done that year after year, and so now we're at the position where we need to stop and correct that. And COVID has just added to the already painful situation. And I fear that, we're going to get even more bad news next week, and we're going to have to revisit yet again the line item budget. So I wish I had better news, but unfortunately I do not.
So I just wanted to add one thing, Stacy. And Matt, you did a great job on that. So the other thing is the Capital Reserve Fund. So we did go to our voters and we did ask to transfer $1 million in repairs. So this is a savings for our taxpayers, because we didn't have to bond. They didn't have to pay interest on any of that. We paid for it out of our fund balance so that we could put a new roof on the middle school, which is sorely needed. The roof is leaking and it's destroying the infrastructure of that building. Also, the Harmony Hill boiler, that is, at end of life. And again, a tough decision. If we don't replace that quickly and it goes out and we have kids in the building, that's not good, and it could take an extended period of time trying to replace the boiler. So those were some tough infrastructure decisions that we had to make. We haven't gone out for a capital project in many years. And so we did go to the voters last year to transfer $1 million from our fund balance to the Capital Reserve Fund for those repairs. But it was at a savings for taxpayers, and that's why we did it.
Matt, this is Margaret. Can I just ask, we had talked about when we were starting having budget discussions, the enormous impact that charter school has on us. And we did have these conversations, and Jennifer and Peg, I know that you guys had talked about putting together a plan of how we could, reach out to these families, because I mean, 858,000 or whatever the amount is just really impacting our budget in a pretty significant way. So I'm just wondering if that has happened and what your thoughts are.
So
I just want to say that we have about 60 charter school students, of which 9 were kindergarten students this year.
So Margaret, yes, I did talk at a previous board meeting about letters that I did send to all of our families, a personal letter from me, reaching out, seeing how they were doing during the closure, and alerting them to our meal distribution program and how they could also be a part of that, as well as some mental health resources that we also shared with them. So we did that, and we are sending out letters right now. Peggy and I just finished that letter, and we're sending that out now, asking for the updated continuity of learning plan from these charter schools so that we can assess that. But we also said that once they submit it to us, then we will then we'll submit payment to them. But without that, we are not going to. So that was part of my letter.
You're sending that letter to families or to
No,
the charter
two
school?
different letters. One to the families that went out a few weeks ago. The other one we're sending out now to the directors and business officials of these charter schools, requesting their updated continuity of learning plan. And once we receive that, we will send out their payment that they're due.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then follow up with phone calls, to them as well.
Okay. And of those 60 families, was there any correspondence? Did anybody respond to any of the outreach?
Nobody responded to my letter, so now we're following it up with personal phone calls.
Dr. Spring, this is Sue. Was a family, did a family come back to us recently from a charter school or no? I thought somebody had said that. No family has come from a charter school.
Peg, do you have any knowledge of that?
Not firsthand. I do know that we have had families come back. I'm not sure exactly when that was. I can look tomorrow.
And are the liaisons part of that process? Like, are they involved in reaching out to families to come back to our district, or?
So last year Mackenzie was involved. Oops, I hit the wrong. Last year Mackenzie was involved with making phone calls. Now that Jennifer has sent out the letters, we'll be coming up with a plan for reaching out and again.
So just Mackenzie was involved. Kayla was not.
Last year Mackenzie was involved. Yes.
So just Mackenzie.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to jump back because there's a
About
handful
the,
more of these. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
One of the biggest challenges with this virtual learning situation is student engagement and just getting the students to connect. Are the family engagement specialists, are they a significant part of our effort out to families of students that we don't seem to be able to connect with during this?
So right now, yes, they are. The elementary principals have come up with a list of students who might not need direct social work support, but whose parents might be struggling with schedules, with chunking assignments into blocks of time, who might need some tips to help with the online learning. So each elementary school has identified families, and Kenzie's reaching out to them. She did also reach out before on Chromebook distribution, and Kayla is working with a number of families at the middle school level and also our homeless families.
I just think, and by several board members, and I know that everyone is aware of this, change awareness into rethinking. The specialists were brought on, and years historically we didn't have, but I think we need to be prepared for this virtual learning. to not go away anytime soon, and to possibly this second hit us again hard, and these may become crucial positions. Having said that, Jennifer are between a rock and a hard place with all these things, because we can make and strong cases for everything that was cut. But the matter is, this is probably going to get worse, and we're gonna in worse positions we are now. But I think I agree with some of the that have been made. Things like cell phones, summer school. We can live without. No, we can live without summer school. But we may dress staff that can get to families, that can physically get to families of students.
Yeah.
Helen's brought up safety concerns. So I think we just need to look at it than we ever have before. And it may very well be that position family engagement specialists are now vital positions that we have to have that mean to get the families in ways that we never did before. This, so I can call for bringing back these positions. Now, if you say to me, where are you going to get the, I don't have an answer for that. So I understand how difficult and challenging this is. I just think we need to take a very different look, given the dramatic change in.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, with that, I'm going to jump back. As I mentioned, there's still a handful more of these comments, and I'm just kind of reading through them in order. So there are some from multiple people, but they'll be out of order because that's how I received them. Dawn Drew brought up the just supporting the idea of looping, about how the teachers work super hard with the kids and they already know where their deficits are and how they can work best with those kids, which looping has always made sense to me. So I hope we can support it as much as we can. Bill Smith had a question for the board, which was, are we afraid or scared of, absentee ballots reaching more of the population that might be willing to vote down the budget? Maybe more people will end up voting negatively because of the current situation and what's going on, and how we would handle that or prepare for that. And I don't know, I mean, as far as it has crossed my mind, like whether, we would ask for 0%, but that's another $330,000 that we would have to find somewhere to cut. And I think my position is all we can do is ask for that 2.3%, I believe, or somewhere around there from the local population, because that gives us the best shot to provide, to say some semblance of where we were. More cuts on top of more cuts just aren't feasible, in my opinion. So that's where I'm at, in any case.
This is Margaret. Can I just comment?
Yeah, of course.
I'm not afraid. I think I'm excited to have more people participate. Community engagement is something that, we have a small community. We have people out there who care about our kids. They care about us. They care about our school district. They care about this city, and they don't want to see. Of course, there's going to be naysayers out there that'll shoot everything down. But I think for the most part, this community is a tight-knit community, and they understand the position that we're in. And the 2.23, $46 or whatever it is, an average, I don't think that's, I think that's responsible, and I think it's reasonable. We're not going over the cap. I'm all for transparency. So, I mean, it's going to be a challenge on how it's going to be managed and how we're going to operate it. But, again, we'll do whatever we need to do.
And I 100% agree for as far as like transparency and, more community involvement is only a good thing. It's unfortunate that we're in this situation, but it's almost a nice test case to see if absentee ballots will get more involvement from the community. So, maybe that'll be a nice silver lining. Another comment we got was from Lynette McGovern about reopening and just how there's so many unknowns from the government Department of Health and what things will be like about screening people, what staff needing PPE and no ideas what those costs are. And just a suggestion that, we have to be working with multiple different plans of different scenarios of how we could best handle each one. And just an agreement from Lynette that it's hard to plan for what you don't know. And that I think we should try to fill the band position. Again, just talking back to an earlier conversation. And I already mentioned this already, but every time we can argue about every one of these and their benefits, we just have to do our best to figure out what we think is the most essential. And for things that we want to replace, we have to come up with the money from somewhere else. And that's just those are the tough positions that we're put in. A question from Don Drew, if there's a way for the elementary music teacher to somehow continue the elementary band program. I don't know if we could, I don't know if we could somehow run the program in a way that wouldn't require the staff that we had before. Perhaps there's some new way we could reimagine the program. I don't know the answer to that question.
This is Margaret. I know right now we are doing virtual lessons. It is happening. I saw a friend of mine, post a picture of her son, and it was fantastic to see. So, maybe we're able to investigate something where we still are, can give kids the opportunity to take on some virtual lessons or to still be involved. It's just food for thought.
Thanks, Margaret. A challenging question from Hetty Krajewski about how, we're going to have a learning gap with the students and how with the pandemic and class sizes, how it's going to get worse with the pandemic and also with class sizes increasing specifically for the middle school for sixth graders. There'll be classes with 27 students, and I'm sure there are other grade levels with a high number of students as well. And I know, where we're going to have challenges here that you've already mentioned, Jennifer, about we're going to have needs and we're going to need to spend money on those needs. We don't yet know where that money is going to come from or how we're going to make those decisions. But we are working on those plans. A comment from Dawn Drew about backing up comments from Susan and Helen about how Governor Cuomo talked about a 30% increase in domestic violence in April, and just believing that our students would also be victims of this increase as well. And it weighs on her mind as a parent in the district. And now our teachers are always on the front line for picking this up. And what the question here is, what are we currently doing to make sure all of our students are being taken care of? And I know we as a board have talked about this a couple of times, but Jennifer, if there's anything you can share about what types of things we're working on or are doing now or planning to do, that would be great.
I'll also have Peggy join on. I mean, the connections are obviously are very important, making sure we have those connections each week with our students. And when we don't, then following up, notifying our principals, having a team approach. And in the worst case scenarios, when we really haven't heard from kids, then we're working with the city and with our Cohoes Police Department and making some wellness checks. But I know principals are making home visits as well to check on our students. So Peggy, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, Erin Hill and I met with the social workers and psychologists last week, and I also met with the nurses, and they are doing wellness checks when there are concerns are brought to them, or when they're concerned because they're not hearing from someone. I know the principals are keeping logs, data through sheets, etc., tracking things like this. Teachers are coming to them. We're also going to put this on our next grade level meetings with all the elementary, which are this Friday and next Friday. So they're aware and they are reaching out to families. And then at the secondary level, Dr. Spring, we are also enlisting some further help, correct?
Yeah, so they have a team approach at the high school. They have a team of staff members who, are, organized to connect regularly with students. And then when there are any concerns, then they are in contact with Jim Ward, who's the Public Safety Commissioner for the city of Cohoes. He's our contact.
And I know that one of the things that has come up in conversations before is like, are there things like text hotlines or things that students might be able to use from home that we could provide access to? So I think those things are on the radar, although if people have specific suggestions or resources that they think would be valuable for the district to offer, reach out, let us know. Everyone's kind of overwhelmed trying to figure out everything all at once. And so if anyone has specific suggestions, that definitely helps with focus in mind to make sure that we're all doing the best that we can here. We did have another comment from a community member just thanking the board and also strongly suggesting that we keep Ellen Alexiou full-time and both family engagement specialists. And again, just thanking us for what we do. There was also a comment from a parent about they believe there were 2 seniors that were unable to attend or for whatever reason didn't get to participate in the Chicago video making. And so I'll forward that on. So hopefully we can remedy that. And then also a comment from Jacqueline Tuchero about how this is something we talked about, but Abram Lansing and Van Skyke are splitting a school psychologist, and the psychologist averages 100 IEPs a year, and that the other buildings have their own school psychologists with lower caseloads, and that to Jacqueline, this is a higher priority than the parent liaisons based on her needs at Van Skyke. And so that's all very helpful. I appreciate, Jacqueline. Thank you for reaching out, because every one of these comments helps provide some insight to some scenario maybe we weren't aware of, or just some insight into where people and what value different positions bring, because at the end of the road, we are trying to figure out what is most essential, which is the unfortunate position that we're in. And that's everything for what I have in front of me for now. I did have maybe one question for when we get to the post agenda period. Any other comments, questions from folks before I ask for a motion?
I'm sorry, Matt, are you asking for comments on the agenda items?
Yes, yeah. And that reminds me, I did want to point out related to the agenda, Dr. Spring brought up one of them before, I believe, but we have a handful of donations, including from CSR to help for mobile hotspots for the situation we're in, from Stewart's for helping with Chromebooks and a program there, and our backpack program as well. So thank you for those donations from those groups. Any comments on the agenda from board members?
I guess this is Margaret. Sorry, this is a question on the in-district travel. Is this travel that has happened this school year, the 1920 school year, and this is all contractual travel for everyone, or are there some that are just based on agreements? Because I see, CTA unit, and then prorated for, maybe these are outside providers. OT, PT, and then
travel for this school year. It was prorated from September through March. And the items that are listed under info and consideration would be contractual.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, I'm following that.
Okay.
And the items that are under instructional, or I guess, item C, like that is just based on the amount of miles they travel and submit to you on a claim?
They do not. We have historically paid them through board resolution. So initially it would have been based off of a claim, and then it was historical expenditure, and then it was moved to a stipend. So it's been a stipend for a number of years now. But initially it would have been based off of a claim.
Okay,
There's been modified in some time.
okay, and it's just there's a big difference in some of the stipends, and I'm just curious, like like how is that negotiated? Is it negotiated? Is it just an understood that that's how much they get? I don't know.
Initially, it would have been based off of their average claim. But again, it hasn't been revisited in a number of years.
Okay, maybe that's something we could look at.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of our travel plans and kind of what we have in the budget are places where obviously I'm with Mark and some of the folks that I think it's unlikely that even if we come back to school, that we won't be out of school again, you know, come November at that point, or at some point whenever that second wave or whatever hits, that we'll be in this state again where we aren't meeting regularly together at the schools. So I think that it's likely that a lot of our travel costs will be much lower than what we're thinking or have budgeted for in the past. Any other comments from board members? With that, I'll ask for a motion for tonight's consent agenda from the board.
I make the
Make the
motion.
motion.
I'll second it.
It's harder to look around the room and see who's
For a
motioning.
roll, just for a roll call, Mrs. Giller,
Yes.
Mr. Pascal,
Yes.
Mrs. Annalee,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mrs. Dion,
Yes.
Mrs. Carey,
Yes.
and Mr. Nolan.
Yes. Is there any comment from board members on any other topic at all? We covered most of these, I believe, in the earlier comment period, but I do want to open it up in case anyone has any other comments.
I do.
Oh, go ahead, Sue. You can go.
Yes, this is Sue. I just wanted to, I didn't want this to be dropped tonight. I want to address graduation. The salutatorian's mom has approached me, and, I feel badly for all the graduates. I mean, nationally, this is terrible. But, when our valedictorian and salutatorian have worked so hard, to be the top two, I mean, we got to make sure we recognize our kids. I mean, we need to plan something. I don't know if maybe Mr. Wood, we could do a drive-through. I don't know.
Those are exactly the kinds of things that what we're talking about.
Even like something else I saw was a principal in Texas this morning. He has 600 graduates. He traveled 800 miles and delivered special gifts to every student. Nothing expensive. And I'm not asking for that, but I'm saying that it was on the Today Show. So many wonderful things have been done. Some schools are doing using a drive-in theater. I know the board needs to meet, or Dr. Spring and Peggy maybe with Brian and Laura, but more than ever, we need to recognize these seniors. And they just are fading away. I mean, not intentionally, but they've drifted off into nowhere, you know, and just imagine if you were that senior. And I know we all understand, we feel the same way, but we've got to do something for these kids. And I mean, it's going to take some planning.
Yeah, so that was the meeting I was a part of on Thursday, with a number of folks, some parents, staff members, Brian, other staff members. So those are all things that we're thinking about, and if there's specific suggestions, please pass them along.
Okay, just so
I mean, is it something that you might be able to share with us, like what you guys have been? Because we didn't. Personally, I didn't know that you guys were meeting as a committee, or that there was one. So maybe if you can kind of share status or progress.
Yep, I think it just went out to the building liaisons. But
Matt and I are the high school, and I unfortunately that was a work day for me, so I appreciate Matt. Matt was able to get to the meeting. It appears that they're very engaged in trying to creative ways to recognize the seniors, but it's going to be something.
yeah, there has to be. Thank you.
yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, there isn't anything quite concrete at this point that I felt like I should follow up with folks. It was our first meeting, just kind of brainstorming, and people are following up on leads as to what might make sense.
So thanks, Matt, for attending that. And Sue, just so you know, Laura and Brian are just, just as devastated, and they're working really closely with, with seniors and with the class advisors and with, a lot of the high school team to really put something together as meaningful as possible right now. So they're on it. So I just want you to know, and I've been talking to Brian regularly about what his ideas are. So.
And I didn't mean, if I didn't mean to imply that they're not working on it. I didn't mean it to sound like that. I certainly know those two would be. I just wanted to let other people know that it's important to the board, that to all of us, to the community, that those kids are recognized. That's all. I know Laura and Brian are working on it, I'm sure. Thank you.
On top of everything else, I want to, this is Helen, give recognition to some of our community members who have started putting signs out for our seniors. I don't know if people have seen them when they're driving around, but I mean, that's a wonderful thing that you're doing for them. So, keep it up. And also in regards to our community, I also wanted to say that these last couple of board meetings and having the community feedback and all of the people participating has been wonderful and so enlightening. And I'm really just want to encourage our community to kind of keep that up, because we love hearing what you have to say and we need to hear it. So I just wanted everybody to know how much I appreciate it. We all appreciate that. So.
Yeah, thanks, Helen.
I also wanted to mention, but I think we should keep bringing it up. We've got a whole team that's delivering every day, and it's not just the pickup sites, but they're out community, and they've been doing it. We've been in this crazy upside down world, but every day, meals and getting around and getting them out day out. So we appreciate that. And as Helen said, there seems to be so many really are stepping up.
So Mark, the month of April, we distributed 17,000 meals. So that's huge. And again, we're grateful to Brian Nolan. We're grateful to all of our food service workers and all of our volunteers. So absolutely, thank you.
Hi, this is Margaret. I'm just wondering if maybe, I know that the idea was to cancel the meeting on the 13th. I mean, nobody really wants to meet 3 weeks in a row, but there was a lot of things that we had talked about today and asked to be considered. And, just wondering if it might be a good idea for us to reconvene at some point. It doesn't sound to me like everybody is firm on on this budget and this next meeting, we really need to be somewhere at a consensus to make sure that we're following our timelines.
I think from my perspective, that would make sense, but the biggest thing is we may get another shoe drop that renders all of that moot at the meeting at the 20th, because we'll hear after the 13th, but before the 20th, about whether there's additional takebacks in state aid, whether we have like another $1.5 million to find. So I think it could be helpful, but I'm also wary of going through that exercise and trying to fine tune things when it's all gonna possibly be moot. That's my thought currently.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Yep, no, that makes sense. I hear you. I think that we just need to be prepared to make sure we're having productive conversations then, because that's really cutting us to the wire.
I agree.
I just have one more thing. Obviously, just like to continue thanking our staff for what they're doing through all of this, and especially the teachers. And on top of that, the teachers with children of their own. I know doing the work while trying to help out with educating my kids while hitting daycare with a 1-year-old, it's a lot. So truly appreciate everything everyone's doing, and I know my teachers have been incredible, and adding new things each coming week as we get more into this being the new normal.
I've also had some positive feedback. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week. We all appreciate what you guys are doing out there. It's a lot of hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ditto for sure. With that, I did have one more question from a community member, which was around what our plans are for like facilities use for the summer. Specifically, they got notice from TSL that the district didn't think that we'd be able to support them over the summer. Just so if we could talk about that a little bit. I know based on some conversations today, I'll start the conversation that we don't know what our guidance is going to be for what we can do over the summer yet. So we haven't made any decisions about what we can or can't do, and we'd love to support programs over the summer, but we just don't know what's going to be feasible at this point, and if we can let people into the buildings, or how cleaning would work if we have other groups inside. I just don't know the answers yet, which is why the message is right now I think that it's not likely, but I certainly not confirmed or anything. We're still just working through everything. Jennifer, if you could, anything you have to add for that would be helpful.
I think that's correct. Again, we're still waiting to hear what the governor says. Now, TSL does operate a child care program, so they have maybe more flexibility under their licensing versus a summer program. So I think that we'll continue to work with them. I'll continue to be in contact with Tom Stiles from TSL, and continue to work with our facilities and see what possibly it could look like if we are able to. Believe me, we want to support our families, and if we can, we will definitely figure out a way to do it.
Matt, this is Margaret. I'm just speaking. Nadia's having some difficulty connecting, but she just also wanted to reiterate thank you to all of our teachers and those people with boots on the grounds who are really keeping this operation up and running. So she says thank you.
Thank you for including that. Unless there's any other comments, I'll give a moment for folks to chime in, but I believe that's it. We have the meeting on May 20th at 6 o'clock. we'll be here again, all from our own locations. And that's basically it. Does anybody have anything else they want to chime in? Otherwise, we can call the meeting to order at 8:42.
I want to say hi to Rick's daughter, our honorary board member right now. Hi.
So I just wanted to take a second, give a shout out to our top 3, but most especially to my niece, Shannon Seepel, number 3. Congratulations, Shan.
Well, all right. With that, we'll close out the meeting here. Thank you, everyone, for participating. Just to echo Helen's comments, we really appreciate everybody tuning in, watching, commenting, sending us their thoughts. You know, it helps us. We're all coming from things with different perspectives and backgrounds, and we're trying to do the best that we can for the community, for our kids, to help everything, you know, the best that we can. That's why we're all here. So, and it really helps to get all the input from everyone and come up with some creative solutions where we can.
I just wanted to add that I want Stacy and Jennifer understand that we all know that this is easy, and there's no one feeling the pain more than we appreciate all your efforts.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
There's no session tonight, so everyone can go enjoy the rest.
Matt, can you just remember to send us those forwarded emails that you weren't able to read out loud?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
I have. I'm gonna do it.
And then, Aaron, if you could also send out that list again, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Right.
Good night.